It doesn't have much content, but that's because everything is new. Okay, this guy wants to arm wrestle me again. Are we gonna arm wrestle? I agree, that was pretty unstable. Yeah. I was going to say that I don't think it's possible for that to happen unless there's some sort of instability with the connection, and almost immediately after that, I was kicked out of the room because of unstable connection. That's just not a great start. Not a great start. But yeah, that's... that is next level arm wrestling. I told you I was the undisputed champion. Only the champion can do things like that. That's like a level of intimidation that's never been seen before. Like, instead of standing across from the person to arm wrestle, you just fucking... you stand right next to them, basically under their armpit, and then arm wrestle them into submission. That's the way to do it. My advice comes free of charge. Now that was last week, and the disconnection that you saw in that moment was the servers going down while I was trying to record this game live. That was obviously extremely inconvenient, but we are back now, not necessarily live, but I will be live later. I just want to re-record that introductory portion of the video so that we can have that being unaffected by servers either being up or not up. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Monster Hunter Tri. This is a very significant game for me personally in the series, but I would say that it also holds considerable historical significance within the series on its own. This is the very first third-generation Monster Hunter game, and pretty much everything in it, save for some ideas that have been carried over from previous generations, and some monsters as well, having been carried over, only Rathalos and Rathian, off the top of my head, everything that appears in this game has been done from scratch. The reason why it's worth mentioning that is because across all of the first and second generation games, the assets within the game, the monsters quite literally, were being carried across the games. Your experience in Monster Hunter 1 was not going to be drastically different visually in Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, a game which came out many years later, and, strictly speaking, was running as if it were in the same engine. I don't know if the engine was literally different or not. It may have been, because you've got different platforms, but it looked like a PS2 game up until 2008, technically 2009 if you're looking at the international releases for Monster Hunter Freedom Unite. But here in 2010, this game has been developed from the ground up, from scratch, in a new generation of Monster Hunter. So I suppose, therefore, what I would say is the second generation was more conceptual in its evolution, rather than being a drastic improvement visually to the game. I suppose some animations were improved, but it's not much of a difference. Here, this really does feel like, as it comes out, a very modern Monster Hunter, which is not the feeling that you really got, particularly with the portable games, because they had to compromise on the visual aspect of the game. It remained essentially stuck in the year of 2004. This game, as I understand it, was originally intended to be developed for the PlayStation. It was developed for the Wii in the end, but consequently, it looks absolutely magnificent. The resolution of the textures is much higher than in any Monster Hunter game before or since up until the release of Monster Hunter World, which was very significant. You know, when you're sort of pottering around in the year of 2017 playing, I don't know, Monster Hunter Generations, and perhaps Double Cross if you happen to play the Japanese version of the game, it was significant to think that the game from 2010 was still the most visually attractive Monster Hunter game. So this game here, obviously, on the face of it, is worth playing just for the visual experience. If you're emulating it, honestly, it's not as good if you're playing on the Wii system. But I can say that there are various aspects to the game which are totally unique to this particular game, and are not carried over into other versions of third generation Monster Hunter. Now, the obvious thing that is going to carry over is underwater combat. That is specific to this game. This is the first game where underwater combat appeared, and it was carried over into 3 Ultimate. 3 Ultimate was intended to be the G-Rank version of this game, whereas, say, Portable Third was more like Beta Team's answer to Alpha Team's third generation game, which did not carry over underwater combat, and indeed, because it was on the PSP, carried various assets over from Freedom Unite and the earlier PSP Monster Hunter games, rather than building literally everything from scratch, which is what happened in this game. A consequence of building everything from the ground up is that you do have less content in the game. There are only 18 monsters here, but I suppose all I can say is that you try to focus on the things that are unique. For example, bowguns in this game are completely unique. They decided to overhaul the bowgun system completely in this game, and it's really interesting. There's no effective way for me to summarize it pithily, except to say, you can, for example, rapid fire with heavy bowguns, okay? That concept of rapid fire has to be with a light bowgun, it doesn't exist in this game. That might sound a little strange at first, but there is a complexity to the bowguns which I will get into soon that will probably explain why that is possible. The village location here is a very laid-back fishing village on the coast of Moga Woods, or the deserted island, I guess, off the coast of the island. And yeah, it's all on boards, and it's very quaint and very nostalgic. It's one of those places where you can probably imagine it being nostalgic even if you have no memory of it from the past. It's just one of those things that lends itself to nostalgia. And I suppose it would be the laid-back nature of the location. Because this is an Alpha Team game, you will have very distinct offline and online locations, particularly in the sense that to play online, you actually need to be connected to servers of some kind. I'm pleased to say that as of around 2021, 2022, fan-made servers were made available for this game. It's the Monster Hunter Tribe server project, I believe that's what they're called. Very understated, they're not looking to create a unique and special name for themselves, they're just, you know, rather humble and just advertising themselves precisely as you would experience their project, just Monster Hunter Tri server project. And they do have a Discord server. I would encourage you to join them if you want to play online in this game. One thing that I can say is that they are very, very good with the setup procedure. It is extremely quick, very simple, and the tutorials are very easy to understand. So if you... and I suspect that if even under those circumstances you're having difficulty setting things up, they will give you a hand with that as well. There is a support community there to lend a helping hand. Obviously, when I was recording before, the servers did go down, but that's not something to criticize them for. It is a fan server. I should instead be commending their indefatigability in constantly getting the servers back up when they do go down. So, yeah, my thanks go out to them, indeed. I will be connecting to the online servers momentarily. I'm doing this without live streaming just in case there are literally no rooms for me to join. If there are no rooms for me to join, I will create my own room and then do a little tour of the online. And if there is a room for me to join, I will join that room, go live, and then conduct my tour in a live stream. I don't know if that makes much sense to you, but it's easier for the presentation of this video for me to conduct things in that way. I did it in a similar way with my Monster Hunter 1 Origins recording. So I don't know if there's much more that I really need to show here. The first example of a free hunt in Monster Hunter, which has been expressed in various ways in the future, like for example, in Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate you're able to go on expeditions. Well, the first example of that is shown in Monster Hunter Tri, where you can exit Tomoga Woods and effectively hunt within the desert island location with no time limit, and with whatever monster happens to appear in the field. You'll be given rewards when you complete a journey there. You can leave at any point, and you'll actually accumulate points as you kill various monsters, whether they are small monsters or large monsters. You're not really going to get substantial rewards if you only kill small monsters and then leave, but if you've gone and killed a large monster and then returned to the village, which can be done either from the menu or by actually physically walking to the exit point, which is where you initially entered, you can come back here and then speak to the chief's son, the relevance of whom, obviously, is explained in the story, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Basically, you've got the village chief, who is the main guy. I guess he's equivalent to the guildmaster of the online, and while he doesn't actually give quests, he's like the head honcho, as you would expect. This guy, he's not necessarily the head, but he is of considerable seniority within the village, and he will actually deal with your farm and your resource points. Now, obviously, resource points are something that we're familiar with in later games, but this is sort of... it exists here in a way that's more similar to the later games than in previous games. So in previous games, it's... weirdly, they called it Poke Points for Poke Village in Monster Hunter Freedom Unite and Freedom 2. And I can't quite remember the system that was in place in Monster Hunter DOS. I think that was the first game where you had a point system for offline that would be used for your farm. I believe I'm correct in saying that, but I don't have a clear memory of Monster Hunter DOS. I need to play that game again so that when I'm referencing that game, I actually have memories from which to draw upon, because it's rather unhelpful for me to say, this might have been how it was in DOS. The reason why that's significant is because you've got DOS, Tri. Obviously, there's a sequence here, and the significance of DOS, of course, is that it was the first game of a new generation, so some things were implemented for the first time in that game. I just need to apprise myself of the details before I record these videos. But anyway, if you have done a free hunt in Moga, you can come into here, where you basically have your hunt report appraised, and then converted into points, and indeed commodities. You're not just given resource points for your efforts. You can see you've got point total at the bottom there. That's going to convert your kills into points, but you will actually have a separate reward screen that gives you commodities which can be used to trade. They can be used as tools, for example, with the fishermen. The fishermen can actually use commodities that you get here to make their fishing voyages more effective, and indeed you can even hunt for treasure using some of those. Like a treasure tracker, for example, would be an item that you would get from these hunts, and you can also trade for them with the Argosy Sea Captain. The Argosy? What? Yes, it did initially appear in this game. The only other game that has the Argosy is Rise. I sort of, I don't know, I shat a little bit when I saw it in Monster Hunter Rise. I didn't really understand why they had to bring that idea back, but and in that particular game as well, but there is a protocol when it comes to my recordings, and it is to not discuss 5th generation, because the beatific smiles wrought upon the faces of my dear audience will start to disappear if I start to discuss 5th generation Monster Hunter. There is a reason why I don't play it. So that's the system for free hunting in this game, and it's pretty good. It's good for gathering resource points. It's a very engaging way to gather resource points, and I haven't really done too much of it. I'm very focused personally on the online of Monster Hunter, and really this is the game for me personally where playing online in Monster Hunter became absolutely essential when experiencing Monster Hunter. It just wasn't enough for me to do the offline and that was it. As a person who started in Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, I didn't really have much of an online system to engage with. There was no online integrated into the PSP. You had to use X-Link Kai or connect to friends locally, like directly. In my case, I did actually use Ad Hoc Party on the PS3, but with not much success. The connectivity was really poor, and I didn't really get into many groups. I was able to do some hunting, but not an extensive amount. I did end up soloing almost all of the... almost all of the quests that I ended up doing in Monster Hunter Freedom Unite. I got to early G rank, from my recollections. And, yeah, it wasn't that easy. But here in this game, it does have integrated online, like the other Alpha Team Monster Hunter games, the stationary console Monster Hunters. So 1, G, and 2. Monster Hunter 3, Try, in this case, has that same system. You connect to the city mode, and then you can play with hunters without difficulty. This, however, is the first Alpha Team game where you are limited to 4 players in a group at one time, which is obviously drawing from the implementations of Beta Team in the portable games. Monster Hunter DOS does actually retain the 10 hunters in a hall system, which comes with its pros and cons. Obviously, if you've got a group of 10 people there, you have to try and organize yourself into 2 groups of 4, and then you've got 2 stragglers sort of looking around going, what the fuck? So there is a lot of communication required at times, but I guess it's not that problematic if you're playing with a group of friends. But anyway, there is a lot that needs to be negotiated in those situations. I'm not going to say it's better or worse, but it is significantly different. That I can say with certainty. Anyway, just briefly, you've got your blacksmith here, you've got the person who sells your equipment, or sells equipment to you, rather. She doesn't accost you and, denude you of your equipment and then sell it, liquidate it against your will. It doesn't happen that way. Gal with the goods, obviously you can see there's a little bit of lighthearted translation going on here. This is the gal with the goods. She, well, that could be taken in a sexual way, but no, in this case, she has literally goods for us too. She has goods and services, or perhaps we shouldn't say services after I've made that rather crass comment. But yeah, this here is your room. You can see there are some masks here, and this is actually a significant point for me to mention, which I've completely neglected to mention for a reason, not because I was planning to, but because I tend to forget about them. Your followers in this game are shakalakas. If we go back to Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, you've actually got a cat follower. I don't believe that there is actually a cat that assists you in hunts in Monster Hunter Freedom 2. That's just another one of those changes from Freedom 2 to Freedom Unite. I will be recording Freedom 2 for this series, by the way. It will be recorded after this game, and I'll be able to go through all the differences between Freedom 2 and Freedom Unite that you may or may not be aware of. I've sort of touched on it a little bit in previous recordings, but when I show you, you will actually be able to get a sense for how much was first implemented in Freedom Unite that was actually not even present in Freedom 2. But in Freedom Unite, you had a feline companion that you could bring with you on hunts. They didn't really do very much. They had like a little pickaxe thing, and they would technically level up as time went on, but it wasn't very impressive. We'll just put it that way. Here, you have an all-new system where you have a Shakalaka companion named Cha-Cha. I think I said Shakalaka's plural. That's technically true in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, where you have a choice between Cha-Cha and Kayamba, and in fact, I think you can bring both at one time. I think I'm remembering that correctly. I think online you can only bring one, and then offline you can bring both. But here in this game, you've actually got not just a cat that hangs around, you've got a character who speaks and has a personality. I've never been that warm to Cha-Cha, which might, cause me to be held in extremely low regard by some people watching this, but look, I don't get that much out of Cha-Cha, but I will explain how he works. He's got various abilities that you can actually... I think you can level him up and he gains access to new abilities as time goes on. He doesn't change weapons, but you can give him elemental attacks, and there are a lot of things that you can edit with him. And he's got different masks. You can see that these masks that are hanging up here are actually masks that he wears. His default, or his standard mask, is the one on the far left at the top. But yeah, you've got various masks. Obviously, the most notable one in this case being the second from the left, which allows you to cook meat on his head, which is very interesting. I don't know if it's as effective as the barbecue spit, or even the double barbecue spit, but yeah, there you go. I've got this is a lava lamp, literally. These are little decorations. I can't remember what they're called. We'll just call them statues for now. There are statues that you can actually get, ornaments, that you can actually trade for and purchase, that you can put in your house here in the offline, and also in your house in the city mode. Again, alpha team game, so you've actually got a player home where you can go to and actually make a few changes to the furnishings of the home. I think we're getting to the point where I'm going to be demonstrating that, because I've been offline here for probably long enough. This is annoying, isn't it? It looks like a place where I can go, but I can't actually go there. You know, come to think of it, I've never been bothered by that until I drew your attention to it in that moment, so... yeah, probably not very relevant. These are the people... oh yes, this is the lady who sells you fish, and these are the people who go fishing for you. You don't interact with them directly. It is the fishmongeress who will actually organize the fishermen for you. She's head honcho around here. Let's go to mode select. Mode select obviously referring to village and city mode. I think they call it town mode in Monster Hunter 1 and Monster Hunter G, and I think also in Monster Hunter DOS it's just called town. In this case, it's city. Does that mean that this is bigger? Probably. I think this is bigger. Off we go. Let's cross our fingers that the servers are actually up and running. Just to say briefly, actually, come to think of it, this is not going to be brief. This is going to be a running theme throughout the entirety of this recording, but Monster Hunter Tri is a game that is really, really significant to me. I have so much nostalgia for this game that, you know, you could almost feel it emanating within you when you were not playing the game. These days, I do actually jump on Monster Hunter Tri occasionally and experience it, and I don't have the same richness of nostalgia that I had, say, 3 or 4 years ago for the game. But I did get it around the time it came out. It was a seminal moment for me in the Monster Hunter series. It was essentially where I first cut my teeth on Endgame Monster Hunter, really learnt how to play the game in depth, and I had numerous, very significant online interactions with people in this game. I will also mention that the online community of Monster Hunter Tri is unparalleled, or was unparalleled in its quality. I cannot speak for the community of Monster Hunter 1, because I was not there. I was playing Monster Hunter while Monster Hunter 1 servers were up, but I did not have a PlayStation 2 at that time, and I was not really inclined to play that game. So, I never experienced what that community was like, but I suspect that it was of a similar quality to the Monster Hunter Tri community. And interestingly, you did have, in the international release, 2 separate servers. You had the European server, which is where the Australians were grouped in with, and you had the US server. And I can say that everyone who played on the US server, whereas I played on the EU server, expresses the same perspective that I have on the community that once was here. The community is different, of course, because it's just not going to be the same after all of these years. But, yeah. Scary to think it's been 14 years, hey? 14 bloody years. Alright, connecting to the server, what have we got? It is all up and running. We've got 13 people playing. It's worth mentioning that there were about 13 people playing on a regular basis at this time of day, back when the Wii U servers were up for 3 Ultimate. I'm not suggesting that there's a crossover of players, but 13 is pretty acceptable at this stage in the lifespan of traditional Monster Hunter. I say lifespan as if it's going to die at some point. I don't think it ever will. I don't think traditional Monster Hunter will ever die. You can see at the moment, and this is really significant, and I'm really glad that this is here for me to demonstrate. There is actually a sandstorm rolling through here. Now, this is something that was removed from the series, not the sandstorm, but the system that leads to the sandstorm. This is something that was removed from the series after this game. This is the concept of rotating event quests. So event quests used to be precisely as named. They would come up as an event that would last for a limited period of time, and then it would be gone. and then you'd have a different event quest. Basically, they were on rotation. And this event quest is probably the most significant event quest of the series up until this point. It is the Gen Moran. Essentially, it's called the Festival of Fear, where the sandstorm rolls in, Gen Moran is in the area, and all the hunters gather up together and go off on their sand boats and hunt the Gen Moran. That's why, if you remember the fight where you're hunting Gen Moran, it's not just you. You're surrounded by various boats. And when you shoot the ballista, for example, or shoot the binder, it's not just coming from the ship, it's coming from the other boats around you. You're not just hunting alone, you're hunting with the people of Lochlac. This is the origin of the Gen fight, what you're seeing here. This is the location, this is the context behind it. And this is why Monster Hunter Tri is worth playing, despite the fact that much of it is replicated in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. Elements of it still exist in Monster Hunter Portable 3rd. It's going to be a little bit different here, because it is the raw experience. It's the beginnings of, say, the Gen fight. It's the context that I mention, and that is going to be a different experience. Where we are here is actually a place where I can interact with immediately as we come in to the city. So, if we look back at Monster Hunter 1 and G, coming into the city, or the town in that case, was done through a menu. We did have a menu leading up to this point, but the point between the entrance into the city and moving into a room is a fully interactive space. This was first done in Monster Hunter DOS, where you went to... I'm always unsure if I should call it Dundorma or Dondruma, because before Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate came out, it was called Dondruma. But it was changed to Dundorma. Dundorma is the official translation, right? So Monster Hunter DOS never had an official translation, so I don't know whether to use the old name or use the so-called official translation. Of course, Dundorma did return in some small way in Monster... Well, I shouldn't even call it in a small way. It was, the town of Dundorma did make a return in Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. Not many people commented on it, because not many people had played DOS, but yeah, it was nice to see that again and to have an official translation. But Dundorma was the first place where you could interact with a space before moving into the next room, and the significance of that, it's not really that important, it's not of immense significance, but it's a nice touch. Basically, you're in a place where you can communicate with hunters before moving into a room. So, going back to the days when the servers were up and running, originally on the Wii, this was a place where people would routinely organize hunts before actually getting into a room. What would end up happening from, say, Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate up until Generations Ultimate is that you would create a room and just sort of sit in it and hope that people would join you. In Monster Hunter Tri, you were able to ask around, or perhaps the best procedure would be to come to the board, look to see if there was a group that was already doing what you wanted to do, and if they were not, if there was no such group, you would just ask around here. You would type to people, like, you'd say hi, and then it would actually appear in the chat. And yeah, you would also have free typing with the USB keyboard. I don't have that, unfortunately, because Dolphin doesn't support it, and the Dolphin developers have absolutely no intention of having that be supported for Monster Hunter Tri going into the future. We have had confirmation of that, which is extremely unfortunate. It's a big part of being able to enjoy the online experience of Monster Hunter Tri, it must be said. Being able to actually just free type, and when I say free type, you have a keyboard plugged in, and you just start typing and it'll come up. You hit enter to send, escape to remove the thing that you've typed from the screen. It feels amazing, and just as a brief aside, I will try to keep this brief because I am digressing at this point. Playing the games that came after this, save for Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, always felt like a downgrade because of the level of communication that could be achieved in the stationary console Monster Hunters of 1st, 2nd, and 3rd gen, where you can just communicate on a keyboard, both in the hall and on a quest. that limitation of communication in the 3DS games was part of the reason why I felt that the experience was a downgrade. Obviously, you can comparatively say that the PSP games didn't have any form of communication, really. You had to use the whatever software that you were using to connect to other people, whether it was X-Link Kai or Ad Hoc Party, to actually communicate with people. But, you know, for 3rd and 4th generation, to not have full freedom of communication in hunts, for example, not good. Not good at all, and I really felt that. It felt like a huge step back for me in the series. Anyway, so let's imagine you've gone and organized your group. You can come into here and create a city, create a location, and yeah, you can go and hunt with people. Let's see what rooms are actually available at the moment. Looks like we do have some people that might be worth joining. Got Draco there, HR. You can see the HR system is, well, perhaps you can't see, but the HR system here is the same as it was in the other Alpha Team games, and that's probably the most significant characteristic of this game that relates to it being an Alpha Team game rather than a Beta Team game. It was Beta Team that simplified Hunter ranks to make them reflect the star level that you were actually on. So as you progressed to a different star level, you would progress to the next Hunter rank. I would say that's a simplification and a streamlining of the Hunter rank system. What they actually did in Alpha Team, so this is Monster Hunter 1, G, DOS, and Tri, is that it's a threshold system. You would have like a bracket in which your star level quests would relate to HR. So let's say star level 1 would be HR, I don't know, just as a pure example, HR 1 to 12. That may or may not be true, I'm going based on vague memories, but that's how it would work. And what that does is it incentivizes you to help the people around you. This is what I explained in my Monster Hunter 1 recording in the Monster Hunter Origins series. It is that you need HRP to progress. You actually need experience. You can't just clear the key quests and then straight away you're moving on. You need to actually get up those hunter ranks. And the result of this is that you're incentivized to play with other people who need to get their key quests cleared as well. Not just that, you're incentivized to build your character, to actually acquire materials and then have things to forge. You're not given that temptation to just only do key quests and then blast your way through the game. That is an example of the streamlining of Monster Hunter, which was taking place long before we reached 5th generation, where things were completely overhauled and rebooted, as I say. That's the term that I use. I say rebooted. They didn't even need to go to the extent of rebooting to, in my opinion, simplify to the detriment of the series a hunter rank system. And yeah, you just didn't get that situation where people were carried through the game in the Alpha Team titles. But here we are in the tavern. I'm not sure what these guys are going to be doing. They might be doing Gen Moran. You've actually got 2 choices of quest when it comes to Gen Moran. You can see if I go to event quests here. Am I still... No, I have moved myself. Sometimes I move myself to show the chat and then forget to move myself back. It's really annoying. So here you've got Festival of Fear, which is just to repel the Gen Moran. This has no join requirement. I have very distinct memories of coming into the online, more or less for the first time in Monster Hunter Tri, and seeing this really weird quest with this strange-looking creature, and then joining it and getting annihilated by falling rocks and the like. It was a very rude and very dramatic introduction. Oh, and what are these guys saying? This is very important. You see this guy wiggling here? He just got a free meal. So in this game you can actually have someone sit at the... what I'm going to call the head of the table. You can see there's a little bell on the table. Maybe you can't even tell that it's a bell. But basically he hits the bell. This is where you sit to actually give a meal to everyone who sits at the table. So whoever sits here in this position is given this option, host a meal. If you host a meal, everyone who is sitting in these other positions who selects the option mooch a meal will be given a free meal. And when you mooch a meal, you start to do this activity, which is really funny. And this is the only game where this exists. You can see that they probably were intending originally to have 10 people in one location, because this is nice and large. You've got multiple tables to sit at. Actually, it's just the 2. So you can have 8 people eating at one time. And it's really quite funny, that particular Moocher meal system, and I'm glad that I was able to show that as part of this introductory portion. These guys are doing the HR40 requirement Agnaktor quest. Of course, this is the barrel from the beginning of the recording where I was violently subjugating a person over this barrel by inserting myself under their armpit and just destroying them, essentially. Let me get organized for this quest. I don't want to be left behind. I will probably switch over to a live stream momentarily. There are other things that I want to show you guys, obviously. There is a bit of an adventure that can be undertaken while going through this place. Agnaktor. Can I use earplugs with him? It would be really devastating if I couldn't. I'm going to guess that he is like high grade. He must be. So let's just stick with this loadout that we've got here. I'm going to use maybe Water Sword and Shield. That should do me. It's so funny because you will have seen in that previous recording where I was arm wrestling someone that I was using this exact same loadout, and guess what? It was the same monster on the board. Not a double Agnaktor, but the Signal Agnaktor was on the board at that time, which was, you know, just a funny coincidence. Alright, I'm going to now move into a live stream. I'm going to do just a quick edit. It's not really going to affect those of you watching the VOD. I'll be back momentarily in a live stream format. And we are back, I believe. Yep. Alright. I will organize my chat as well. For those of you who are only watching the live stream VOD, I just did an offline recording to introduce Monster Hunter Tri. And, yeah, now I'm live. So let me just get my chat organized. I do really need to set up my phone correctly with Twitch, because at the moment I'm not logged in at all, and so I've been in the unenviable position of having people subscribe and follow and do all of these things that I can't actually see because I'm not logged in, and it's not really acceptable. I need to be thanking people for their subscriptions and the like. But anyway, excuse me. So yeah, now that I'm live, I don't really need to worry about that. I'm just really glad that I had a group to play with. I'm just throwing myself into these situations, not really knowing if there are people to play with, because that's the nature of hunting with random people. You are at the mercy of chance. It is whoever happens to be here when you are recording. It's just one of the downsides to live streaming Monster Hunter, but anyway. I think my inventory is fine. I don't want to run the risk of being left behind, so let us go. And again, welcome to Monster Hunter Tri, the first of the 3rd gen games. And I think the significance of this game will be understood by those who are familiar with 4th gen watching this, with the understanding that Freedom Unite was the game that came before this one. You know, this is the standard which was established all the way through to Generations Ultimate. And you will also notice, as I alluded to in the introduction, just how attractive visually this game is. It's very nice to look at. Alright, these guys are making their way to, I suppose, Area 7. That's usually the starting area for Agnaktor. I currently have a full Cedeus loadout. So, out of an abundance of caution, I'm using high-grade earplugs. I was intending, really, to bring a greatsword loadout with earplugs. Unfortunately, I can't get high-grade earplugs on a greatsword set. It's too difficult. I suppose I could technically do it, but it wouldn't be very exciting. It would be something like high-grade earplugs and focus. Well, thank you for that. That's very nice. I wasn't sure why he had exited just to shoot me, but then I realized that he was shooting Demon Shot. Very good. Alright, I'm just going to check the volume of the game. It is a little bit too loud, so I'm going to drop it back. I'm being attacked. Well, that's probably a little bit more appropriate. I want it to be nice and audible, but I never want to be in a situation where I'm being drowned out by the game. That is not ideal. Alright, so the monster that we're fighting here is indeed Agnaktor. He is one of the more advanced monsters of the game. He's actually an optional monster in the offline, so there is no point where you are required to actually kill an Agnaktor to progress through the offline. He is in the last group of quests. And he may in fact, and I don't know this for certain, but I think he may appear after killing the final boss in that game. Sorry, in the offline. In that part of the game is what I meant to say. So in the offline, I think he does appear afterwards, and if he doesn't, they're actually trying to Sonic Bomb him out, which can be done with the correct timing. They were a little bit too slow to do it. But yeah, you can already tell that I'm playing with a bit of a different group of people because you don't often see people attempt to Sonic Bomb an Agnaktor. I would say a majority of people don't know that it's possible. But it is indeed possible. And these guys are going for it. It's not unique to this game, I do want to make that very clear. It can be done in Portable 3rd and 3 Ultimate. The reason why you never see me do it is because I don't bring Sonic Bombs. You know, when was the last time you saw me Sonic Bomb a Diablos? Maybe not those of you watching the Link Inverse YouTube, but there you go. Now I can actually demonstrate it. But, yeah. It's basically ideal to throw it as soon as he fully submerges himself in the lava. There we go, we've got a paralysis. I like this team. These guys know how to play the game. And they're putting some effort in as well. Me, I just flail my weapon around at the monster these days. When I was playing Monster Hunter Tri, when it was fairly new, and I was really learning how to play Monster Hunter for the first time, it was the one and only time that I considered myself to be... what's the opposite of a casual? An enthusiast? A tryhard? Maybe a tryhard. We'll say tryhard, just to be, I guess, unfair to myself. I was a bit of a tryhard, you know. I would really care about my loadouts, you know. I was doing evasion lance with adrenaline and just speed trapping monsters and really putting great effort into what I was doing. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with playing that way. I just want to be very clear, but this is actually still the game that I've played the most out of all of the games. And that was time that I put into the series across, or put into this game across about 2.5 years, maybe even a little bit less. And consequently, I was very burnt out from Monster Hunter, because I basically lived on this game. So much of the knowledge that I have of Monster Hunter was established here in this very game. And as a result, I just came back to Monster Hunter not really having the energy to put that sort of effort into Monster Hunter anymore. Obviously, it was still very important for me to be effective in hunts, but to min-max and to really put deep effort into killing the monster, you know, with traps and paralysis and flash bombs and sonic bombs, I really sort of lost the drive to do that. So you don't really see me do it very often. These guys, however, they are hungry for it. They are availing themselves of every opportunity possible to get ahead of this monster. And I'll tell you what, I'm taking advantage of it. What am I doing? I'm shielding a roar when I have high-grade earplugs. That is not well played on my part. But yeah, we've got a group of 3. We may be able to get a group of 4. You obviously saw that there aren't too many people playing multiplayer here in this game. But it's enough to work with, is what I would say. It's enough to work with. Maybe not so much for me, because my preference, particularly when I'm recording, is to play with people who are either in HR 40 or 51 plus. So I was talking before about the different thresholds of Hunter ranks in this game. The final threshold of Hunter rank, in other words, the highest Hunter rank requirement of the game, is HR 51. This is when you're taken into special quests, where you've got quests that had previously appeared, like, for example, Rathian and Rathian, but in this case, like, the HR 51 version of that is, you know, the monsters are much more robust and your rewards will be superior to that of the previous version of the quest. And then you're also given access to certain monsters like Deviljho and Alatreon. Alatreon technically appears as an HR 46 requirement, but that's as an urgent quest, so you're not actually going to be able to post your own Alatreon before reaching HR. Is it HR 50? There is an HR where you get that quest, which is not 51. Maybe it's HR 50, 49, something like that, but the requirement is 46, so if you're not yet getting the quest yourself, and you happen to be HR 46 and above, you will be able to join that quest. But strictly speaking, I would call Alatreon an HR 51 monster. So, yeah, as far as Deviljho is concerned, he is HR 51 requirement, the only exception to that in this game being the capture event quest. So I was talking about event quests before. One of the event quests on rotation, couldn't quite see what was coming for me there, that was not great. One of the event quests on rotation is a capture quest in the Flooded Forest of a Deviljho. Back when the servers were running on the Wii, that was most often the first experience that people would have with Deviljho as his own quest. That's a very important clarification. Almost everyone will experience a Deviljho before getting to HR 46, because he will invade your quests and really make a nuisance of himself. But it has to be said that one of the really pleasant memories that people will have of this game is dealing with Deviljho. I defy you to find a person who played Monster Hunter Tri who doesn't have a Deviljho in their top 3 of monsters. And it's not just about the monster himself, it's just about how he was presented in this game. The intimidation factor of Deviljho in Monster Hunter Tri was exquisite. Just extremely well done. And he remains pretty much of Elder Dragon level in this game. He's almost like an equivalent to Yian Garuga, in a way, from first generation, because Yian Garuga, despite not being an Elder Dragon, was treated very much like an Elder Dragon in that game, and was so stupidly strong, despite not being an Elder Dragon. I would say that Deviljho is an excellent example of an Elder Dragon tier monster, but is actually just a brute wyvern. And he really feels like that here in this game. So, if you are having an authentic experience, just sort of hunting around with people, maybe even with friends who are also trying to... Oh, that was really poor positioning on my part. Even if you're hunting with a group of friends who are just feeling their way through the game. In other words, if you're coming into Monster Hunter Tri without much knowledge of how the game works, and you're still feeling your way through everything, Deviljho will sit on your face. And I don't mean that in a pleasant way. He will completely annihilate you. If you're tempted to fight him, then you'll really experience that. Alright, that Sonic Bomb obviously didn't work because the monster was moving on to the next area. Alright, just making sure the live stream's running nice and smoothly. It's always good to make sure of these things when you're live, because otherwise you run the risk of doing a 2-hour-long recording and, whoa, the live stream is fucked, and my recording is fucked, and I have nothing to show for the time that I've just spent. It does happen very occasionally, and it's annoying. It's just the reality of live streaming. There can be a number of reasons why a 2-hour-long live stream becomes an unsalvageable mess, but I won't get into that. It's the technicalities of recording. What's an example I can think of? I think one time I used to stream off my phone internet back in the day, and if I had been connected to my home Wi-Fi on that phone and then tethered it to my computer, I'd actually be live streaming off my Wi-Fi instead of my phone 4G, and then that would create a live stream where there would be skips all throughout it and people wouldn't be able to watch it. That would happen if I were not being careful enough. That's just one random example of a live stream going wrong. Fortunately, I don't have to worry about that anymore. Well, I can see that we're probably going for a capture here. Yeah, we are. Look, I would have been happy, quite frankly, to use my tranks, but I sort of wanted to wait to see if they were throwing them, to get an idea for whether or not that's what they wanted. It's their quest, and if they want to be carving the monster instead, then I don't want to be negatively affecting that. So this is a double quest, which I had actually forgotten. This guy keeps greeting us. I don't have... Oh no, I do have Psycho Serums. I was about to say I don't have them. Looks like we have to wait for the next monster to spawn. So I will take this time to go around and mine. I was actually about to go to Area 5, but I realized that that would be quite daft, because I can just make my way up to 9, 10, and then drop down to 5 to do my mining. So I would actually say this is an excellent quest to get mining in, because your alternative to this, of which there are two options, one of them being absolutely intolerable, is A, to just depart on quests by yourself and do mining, which can be a little bit boredom-inducing. And the intolerable option is to go around mining in quests that you've just joined with other people in the volcano. So what that tends to create as a situation is a group of people dealing damage to the monster, and then you're going off mining, which is just, it's not a good way to conduct yourself in an online situation. I mean, I'm sort of doing that now, which is not that great, but, you know, I did have an intermission that I was able to take advantage of. It's probably faster if I go this way, isn't it? But yeah, one thing that I'm not too happy with when it comes to this character that I've got, this isn't my original character because it's quite a story, but I ended up selling my Wii. When I was talking about getting really burnt out on Monster Hunter, I became so burnt out that I had lost all sense of value for my character. And so what I did was I just sold my Wii, lost my character, didn't care. And then after about 6 months, I began to experience these immense withdrawals. I desperately wanted to play Monster Hunter Tri again after about 6 months, and it was at that moment that I realized my folly. I almost couldn't believe that I had done something so ridiculous as to sell my Wii and completely, you know, do away with my Monster Hunter character. It was incomprehensible by that point that I had actually thought that that was a good idea. But, yeah, this character that I have here was made around 2012, and yeah, one of the things that I don't like about it is that I don't have as many good talismans here as I did in that original character. And good talismans are really the foundations of your armor sets. You really do need them. And it's worth mentioning that this is the very first game where the talisman system was introduced. We're still going through the motions of explaining the significance of Monster Hunter Tri, and you're going to be getting a little bit of that every now and again throughout this recording, and that is one of the really significant changes. Oh, sorry, I'm body blocking this guy's strategy. How about stratagem? Alright. I hope these guys don't want claws. If they want claws, this is not going to work out. Very interestingly, you don't get claws unless you break every single arm and leg of this monster. Claws? Absolutely miserable. If you want them from Agnaktor, it's not good. Anyway, to actually finish the point that I was making before, I am mining not just as a leisurely activity or just for something to do while the monster is spawning. I'm actually doing it for the sake of my character. I really do need to take these opportunities to mine here in this game. It's one of the only games where I really need to do it. I'm just reporting to you guys that it's really hot. I'm probably going to put the aircon on soon. It's getting very hot here in Sydney, Australia. It's just been very humid, very unpleasant. Coming into summer. Not good. Obviously, we are in the southern hemisphere, so those of you in the northern hemisphere are having probably the opposite experience. Starting to get colder and colder. Occasionally The input detection isn't very good here, and I'm going to blame the emulator rather than the game. If it ever looks like I should be doing a jump forward attack with my sword and shield, and I'm instead just standing still and swinging with my sword, it's because the game is just not recognizing that I'm pressing triangle and circle, or X and A in this case. Hopefully this monster dies soon, because I don't have any more whetstones. I'm actually stuck at this sharpness level. There is nothing I can do. I could always mooch off their whetstones, but possibly one of the most embarrassing things that you can do in a Monster Hunter game is to have to ask people for whetstones, because it's such a basic tool, such a basic consumable that everyone is supposed to bring in Monster Hunter, that to actually have to ask for them is embarrassing. Obviously, because it is such an obvious consumable, people will always have whetstones to spare, but it doesn't mean that it's not embarrassing to have to ask. So yeah, really the only game where I have to ask is Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, because that's a game where you have slicing shots. And I don't use item sets, okay? This is quite a long conversation, but let me just make that clarification. I don't use item sets. So because there is no separate Blade Master and Gunner pouch, that is also a change in this game, by the way. This item list I've got here is a Blade Master pouch. If I change to Gunner, I get a completely separate loadout, which will carry over each time I go back and forth between Blade Master and Gunner. There is no separate pouch in that game, so what ends up happening is that if I'm shooting Slicing Shot in Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, I end up using my whetstone supply to replenish my Slicing Shots, and because I'm not used to having to replenish my whetstones quite so often, I do actually at times depart on quests without any whetstones. And it's really sad. My throat is, it's become very froggy. Come on, let's get back. There we go. That sounds a little bit better, I think. If everyone forgets whetstones, then yeah, that's pretty sad. Hello Peaberry, and hello AJ. Probably came into the live stream pretty abruptly. I did all of my introduction offline. It's just a little bit easier, because in the event that there were literally no people to play with here in Tri, at least I'd be able to continue my introduction uninterrupted while offline, and then I just begin the live stream in a different game or something. You know? It's easier. Much easier. But, yeah, fortunately, there are people for me to play with, so... Sorry, I keep on walking in front of this guy. I do feel some sense of contrition at my inability to avoid interrupting his gameplay experience. So what I'm trying to do here is aim for the body rather than the tail. The tail is actually a separate part of the monster which is currently not broken. Obviously you can break various parts of the monster's body, and even though normally you've got tail cuts, in the case of Agnaktor you've got a tail break and then a tail cut. So because the tail is not yet broken, I can't hit it while he is hardened without bouncing. So you could see there that I was instead aiming for the base of the tail, which is still technically the body, to avoid bouncing. If I lose my green sharpness, it's not going to be a happy moment for anyone. Do you know what? I really am a fool. I've got mini whetstones in the box, and I didn't even take them, despite having an inappropriate number of whetstones of my own. That just goes to show how little or how inconsequential mini whetstones usually are to a person who is well prepared for a hunt, but I was not well prepared for this hunt, evidently. So I actually need those mini whetstones. No, water doesn't cool the body, AJ. The interesting thing is that only fire will work. This is one of these really interesting little tidbits that I can offer people in regards to Agnaktor. Not everyone knows it, and for the people who do know it, they usually don't bother. But fire damage actually melts the hardened shell of an Agnaktor. Fire element. Now, it's not very helpful in this game, because who the hell is going to use a fire weapon on an Agnaktor? It is, however, very helpful in Portable 3rd and 3 Ultimate, where you can use the gun lance. The gun lance actually has access to fire element and water element, or anything else, quite frankly, because you're shelling. When you shoot a gun lance, that actually deals a small amount of fire damage, so you can actually just shell the part of the monster that you want to soften, which applies a small amount of fire damage, which will melt that hard part, and then you can unload on the monster, maybe not literally, but you can start attacking the monster with, for example, the water part of your gun lance. So that would be a great situation where you've actually got water and fire available to you. Oh, when you say cool its body, do you mean water element increases the speed with which he hardens? I don't think that that's true. I haven't heard that. It would sort of make sense. But it's not something I've ever heard, and I really can't relate that to my experience fighting the monster. But yeah, if it were a situation where using a water weapon caused this monster to harden faster, it may actually be better to use dragon weapons. But I don't think that's true. Fucking rust shards. I don't need rust shards. I'll tell you what I need. I need time-worn charms. That is very much on my wish list. I think they're going for another capture. Yeah, I have no memory of it, AJ. What I'm going to guess, and I don't... Because this is a vague memory of yours, I have reason to suspect that this is another one of those urban legends that used to exist in Monster Hunter Tri, because I recall, AJ, that you played Tri back when the servers were going. And this is a very important point relating to the servers. I have spoken very highly of the Tri servers and of the community that once existed in Monster Hunter Tri in my introduction. And I do have to caveat that with the following point, and it is that these people would perpetuate absolute bullshit. Just the number of old wives' tales and urban legends that used to circulate and percolate through this fucking community was unbelievable. We're talking, don't use the ledge while hunting Alatreon, because if you use the ledge, it's going to reduce your chances of getting sky piercers. Just shit that it cannot be substantiated, and that sometimes doesn't even make sense, but it tends to get promoted throughout the community, and then people get a little bit concerned. Like, I think maybe it's trolling almost. I mean, that's a good example of that is the Devil Joe eating its own tail. That's really where it comes from. It's that community of people who are just spreading bullshit. And it did happen. I think that's, you could say that that's a troll in the case of the Devil Joe eating its own tail, but what about in the case of not using the ledge to get sky piercers on an Alatreon? What an excellent troll. Make people think that by using the ledge, which is designed to help people break the horns, you're actually going to reduce your chances of getting the horn. Nightmarish. But that's precisely how they used to do it. There were all sorts of rumors that would go around. And I have a distinct feeling that what AJ's saying, he's expressing it as a vague memory, that Agnaktor would cool faster if you used water or ice. I'd guarantee that that's one of those urban legends from those days. It's not one that I heard, but maybe it was going around on the US servers. Seriously. You're just endless little factual bits of information that really would be better off being disregarded. I guess it's possible, AJ, but I've never heard it, ever. So I'm going to cautiously suggest that it's an urban legend. Now, between now and the next hunt, I'm going to try and showcase this city area a little bit more to those of you watching. There's not much going on up here. These are just guys using... I think they're resupplying one of the dragon ships. These are the ones that go along the sand. You've also got a lot of blimps going around. You can see... or airships, whatever you want to say. Some airships off in the distance there. You can also see down... There's a dock for sand ships. I mean, maybe I shouldn't even call them sand ships. No, I think they are, aren't they? You can see there's water in the distance, but in actual fact, we are elevated very high off the ground where we are here. As for that big building in the distance, I think that's the arena, or I think the arena exists within that building. If we go this way, I'll take you in this direction. Yes, the sandstorm is here, Peaberry. It is certainly here. This is where you forge your equipment. This is where you can buy some basic equipment. There is the Locklack Guide. The Tourism Bureau. He doesn't really have a function. He reminds me of the cat in Generations and Generations Ultimate that delivers your shit. But I guess the only similarity there is that they are small felines that wear red. So I doubt it's the same character. This is a nice spot where you can just look around. You've got an airship parked here. I don't know what the word to use is. I suppose docked. Maybe it's being docked here. I'm not old enough, incidentally, to remember the age of rigid... Well, let's use a special word. I am not old enough to remember the era of dirigible airships. So, the term that is used for that is something I cannot remember. Anyway, it's probably dock. This is the Decor Center. This is where you can actually get those ornaments that I was talking about. So you can brainstorm. This is really weird. I can't even get my head around this shit, I have to tell you. I haven't seen this in a long time. You can brainstorm either crafts, art, sculpting, or curiosity. Anyway, when you get one of them to 100%, it'll give you an ornament of some kind. All the ornaments are basically put into these different categories that you brainstorm. And when you get to 100%, you get one as a reward, I think. That's my recollection. View creation. I've got Twisted Horn object. I don't have all of them, as you can see. I really was not that enamored with the system. My original save file, just in the interest of getting everything done in the game, did have all of them unlocked. But you can see you've got crafts, you've got art, you've got sculpting, curiosity, I don't know. Anyway, there's some more vendors here, as you can see. This guy is your combinator. He actually exists in 1st gen as well, but he's a little bit more useful here. This is Captain Tool. He's very useful. You can actually buy Psycho Serums from him. He's just a good example of someone who sells things that can't be purchased from the regular merchants in the tavern. Another example can be seen here, and indeed over here. Now, during the Festival on the Sea of Sand, or the Festival of Fear, whatever it's called, you've got half off on all of this. And I don't think you're given access to honey, really, but you are occasionally given access to honey, I think. Just not right now, I suppose. And this lady, you can trade things. So you can trade, for example, Macalite and Rathian coins for popfish, if you want to do that. It's a bit random, isn't it? Yeah, the trades here are, as I say, very random, and tend to not be that helpful. I'm going to say hello to this person. Hello, Ethan. I don't think those guys at the top, and by those guys I think you mean, oh, a loon left the city. Very well. As for those guys at the top, I think you mean in the tavern, where they have that ship. I don't know, actually. They might only be there during the sandstorm. It would make sense for the sandstorm to bring more people with boats into the area, so it is possible. This guy, I think, deals with your houses. So you can either, believe it or not, you can actually change your house to a lower rank to what you actually have access to if you want. I have access to the rank 3 house, but if I decided that I wanted to move down in the world, I can go to rank 2, which is a rather humble, small room, or I can go back to rank 1, which is a fucking barn house. So that's, I can't really demonstrate the more basic ones. So this is rank 2, this is rank 1, but I will show you guys the mansion. Here it is. This is your player home, as I refer to it. I've got the guildies here. This is very important. This is essential. I don't know what sort of absolute maniac would put something that's not the guildies in this position. Like, imagine you've got your own balcony overlooking this scenery with airships occasionally going past, as demonstrated here. And you've got these guildies waving at you. I mean, quite frankly, it is ecstasy. It is the epitome of success in life. And in Monster Hunter. Yeah, pay your tab, Ethan. I don't know what on earth that thing is. That is some kind of black poogie. I don't know if there are pigs in this game or if they're all poogies. Do you think that there are poogies and pigs? Or is the poogie a particular pig that we interact with? I've got no idea. I do not know the lore on poogies. I do have to confess. But what I can say is that you should stroke your poogie for extra luck. There's another old urban legend. AJ, I need your help with this one. I still am not entirely sure if stroking the poogie gives you luck or not. I don't know if it's an urban legend or if it's true. I have always assumed it was true, and I haven't really been given a definitive yes or no on whether or not it's true. AJ says no. No, it is not true. I don't know. It's kind of sad to live 15 years of your life believing something only to then find out that it's not true. Oh, okay. It is true in one specific game, and it is the Wii version of Monster Hunter G. How can you even confirm that? How is that something that's verifiable? Did Capcom confirm this? I don't think I can believe that. That it's in only one very obscure version of Monster Hunter. Okay, it apparently does a thing. Well, like it has an effect. Oh, the Wii version of Monster Hunter G. I was very close to getting that. The only reason why I didn't get it many years ago was because it was in Japanese and I just didn't want to subject myself to it. It was a different story when Portable Third came out, keeping in mind that never got an English release. When Portable Third came out, I really wanted to experience it. I didn't want to wait until an English version came out. It just so happened that no version ever did come out. There were petitions, there were exhortations, there was genuflecting and prostrating and begging and just, you know, sometimes very undignified behavior when it came to hunters and Capcom in appealing for an English version of Portable Third, but it never happened. Capcom said, Monster Hunter players in the West have much to look forward to. That's what they said. And do you know what? They were right. That satisfied precisely no one at the time. To be told Monster Hunter players in the West have much to look forward to was quite frankly insulting. We were insulted. But it was true. So thanks, Capcom. I suppose it was just their way of saying we have absolutely no intention of leaving the international players behind, but we also have no intention of giving you Portable Third in English. I don't know why. I just do not know why, but I guess they must have had the feeling that the PSP as a system had run its course internationally. It was still very big in Japan, I have to tell you. In 2010, 2011, even 2012, the PSP was still a big handheld system in Japan, but not elsewhere. So I do understand why Capcom had to... I'm not even going to say pull the plug. They never even entertained the thought of bringing it to the West. They did, however, make a PS3 version, which was weird. Wasn't really expecting that. That did come out of left field, I have to say. Portable Third on PS3. It was good because I think it was integrated with Ad Hoc Party at that point. Apparently, if you stroke your Poogie in Monster Hunter G on the Wii, your Poogie goes on an adventure and brings you items, and they show up in the little bin next to your bed. What the fuck? Who was responsible for the Monster Hunter G Wii remake anyway? Was it Alpha Team? That sounds like a fever dream that Alpha Team would have, for sure. Guys, what if the Poogie went off on adventures? I know that's not how Japanese people sound, but when you play an Alpha Team game, it sounds like a bunch of people just getting absolutely shit-faced and blazed and whatever words people use to describe, you know, indulging in cannabis. And just coming up with absolutely crazy ideas that really have no relationship with good game design. Things that really, if a sensible person sat down and said, hey guys, or rather if there were a sensible person in the room, they would say, guys, you're designing a video game. This doesn't really work with video games. I don't think there was a voice in their ear saying that when they were making these Alpha Team games. They were a bit more sensible in try. I just want to make it very clear that I'm more referring to Monster Hunter 1, G, and DOS when I say those things. They were a bit more restrained in Monster Hunter Tri, a bit more realistic. I suppose if I wanted to be demeaning, I could say that they had matured a little bit. And do you know what? I'm not going to say that it's a demeaning or belittling thing to say, because they did mature. They began to understand the relationship between ideas and actually game mechanics, because I think game mechanics, we can all agree, took a back seat in the earlier games, really. Like, they took a back seat in a big way. It was all about the big ideas of Alpha Team. It was all about their vision, and you either went along with their vision, or you didn't. And not going along with it usually involved you not playing the game at all. Just bumped my my webcam, wanted to make sure that it was okay. It's just as well that I'm sitting here whittering on for so long without pause. These guys obviously are taking a very long time to set up, but that's alright. I tend to keep myself entertained pretty well. Hopefully that also in turn means that you are entertained. But I do realize that it's ideal for me to actually be playing the game. How about I explain the way bowguns work? I have tantalized you by saying that bowguns in this game are totally different from every other Monster Hunter game, and I sort of left you hanging. Let's have a look at the bowguns, shall we? Your bowgun is divided into 3 pieces. These different pieces are going to determine how good your bowgun is in certain ways. As well as that, it's going to affect the ammunition that you shoot. Instead of looking at the ammunition that is shot by a complete bowgun, each individual piece, so all 3 pieces, will have different shots that they shoot. In fact, your different pieces may also have the ability to rapid fire certain ammunition types. So let's look at this. Let me try to remember this. So your frame is usually going to affect your weight. That's usually the biggest, or is it range? Recoil? Your stock, I think, is the most... Yeah, you can see range doesn't even factor in. So your reload speed and your recoil is going to be affected by that. Okay, deviation. Alright, let's imagine you've got deviation which is set by the frame, offset by the barrel or not, and then recoil which is established with both the frame, just the frame, recoil is established by the frame and then offset by the stock. Or not. I don't know if I explained that very well. The reason why it's difficult to explain well is because it tends to be better to show rather than tell. As you see me build a bowgun, you can probably begin to understand how it works, but it is complex. Building a bowgun is complex here. I should have mooched a meal. Why didn't I mooch a meal? I actually was sort of intending to, but then I got so caught up in choosing my own food that I didn't end up mooching a meal. That's alright. Next time, next time. Well, if we're witnessing the mooching of a meal, we must be very close to the departing on a quest part of the experience. If they post Agnaktor, I'll be a little bit frustrated. Oh yes, you do have arena quests, by the way. This is the arena clerk. She gives you access to all of this business. I don't think I've really done them, have I? Have I done them? Oh, that's an unfortunate name, Malaria. Different spelling, but I have a suspicion that this person didn't intend to name themselves after an horrific disease. You look very much ready to depart, like, now. But I suspect you wouldn't leave without me for an Alatreon. Of course, as I've explained in previous recordings, I'm always obsessed with a situation, or not obsessed with, but always paranoid that people will leave without me. They did it. They did it! I'm always paranoid and always obsessed that people will leave without me. And they did it. For Alatreon. In this game. Why? Did I do something wrong in the previous quest? What did I do wrong? What did I do to deserve having these people depart without me? They even selected a maximum of 2 people, I think. Members, 2 out of 2. If they had selected a maximum number of 4, it would have been 2 out of 4, I think. That's horrific. I think that's really unfortunate that they've chosen to do that. But I think what I've said constantly is that there's a bit of paranoia involved here, but hopefully you can see that it's not really paranoia, it's a realistic concern that one has. I mean, there's the only explanation that can be put forward for this is that they have absolutely no regard for me and have every regard for their own experience in the game. And for some reason, the experience that they want to have is going 2-man against an Alatreon. And I can sod off. That's basically how they want to approach this. And it's pretty unfortunate. But fine. I will try to remain in good spirits, but it is... What you've just seen is neither unique to this game or unusual in the series. It is basically an expression of complete disregard for people that you have actually played with before in many cases, but most particularly people who are in your room and playing a game, a team-based game with you. And again, it's not about other people, it's about themselves, it's about you, and it's about your experience. That's how they play Monster Hunter, and I don't understand it. I've never understood it, and I'm really crushingly disappointed to see that same sort of behavior in this game. This is the place where you would expect to see a little bit more principle and inclusivity. But no. It's been made very clear that that is not what you can expect here. It is what it is. It looks like I'm having trouble connecting with this person. If it takes this long, you can generally assume that your connectivity with the person is quite bad. I do have one other person that I can join on. It did eventually connect. One thing I need to double check is to see Oh, we managed to get another person. Lucy, with the Fiendish Tower. The purple Fiendish Tower. And the full Uragan loadout. I'm very fortunate that there is another room that I can join. And that I haven't been left high and dry completely. But obviously the behavior of those people, I mean, let's imagine, for example, and I'm not going to labor the point, I'm not going to stay on this subject for much longer. I just want to make that very clear, because I can rant about this for a long time, and I don't really want to detain you all with these sort of complaints, but imagine if I wasn't sitting here monologuing and conducting a live stream. Imagine if I was waiting for them to post a quest for 15 minutes. Just waiting patiently. And then they just departed without me. They've got no idea what I'm doing. They have got no clue. But for them, the fact that they took that long to get ready for the quest, it was at least 15 minutes that they took to get ready. That did not factor in for them. The very clear understanding that they must have had that I was in that room from the conclusion of the last quest and them departing on that quest did not in any way deter them from departing without me. Didn't deter them one iota. There was not a whit of restraint on their part in departing without me. So, there you have it. Is it because I never communicated with them? I think they said hi at one point in the past and I didn't really... Well, I said hi to someone joining the room, but you can't argue, therefore, that I'm not participating in the room. What if I don't speak English? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's just no justification and no real explanation for that kind of behavior. And I will keep stumm, because quite frankly, I have lots of colourful words I could use to describe those people, but it's their journey. Now, Ace has an event weapon from this game that I don't have. It's the Rising Soul. There are a few event weapons that I don't actually have, and it's also worth mentioning that most people in this game are not going to have all of the event weapons because, and I probably need to update myself on this, but the Monster Hunter Tri servers do not yet give you the option to depart on all of the event quests. So as I say, there is a rotation of quests, but not all of the quests that were on the original servers are in that rotation pool, like in that quest pool. So there are certain weapons that you can't access. I do have one of them. In fact, I'm going to demonstrate it for this hunt. Excuse me. Is this the loadout that I want? This is my lance build, right? Yes. It is called the Bandolance Biako. And it is my favourite fire lance of the game. It's basically a recolouring of the gun lance prototype from first generation. Very attractive, but I have to say that I think I prefer the Japanese version. Another important point to mention is that the Japanese version of this game does have different event weapons to this version. I think that was an interesting attention to detail, or the attention to detail that lies behind the decision to have different weapons is interesting. They didn't want, or maybe you could say that it was more a case of them not wanting the filthy Gaikokujin to have access to the Japanese weapons. They need to get their own weapons. I doubt that was the perspective that Capcom had. But basically, the Japanese version of this gun lance is more of a light color. It's like it's a pearlescent silver color, and I actually prefer it to this darker look. The Rising Soul, for example, the longsword that Ace had before, the Japanese version has sort of an orange color. It's so interesting. So Rising Soul for us has that light color, sort of a light blue with a teal or turquoise accent, whereas the Japanese version of that sword is more of an obsidian with an orange accent. So my lance and his longsword are like opposites in that regard. Japanese versus international. Ethan is getting angry on my behalf in the chat, based on the behavior of those people in the previous room. All I can say is that if you've been watching me livestream Monster Hunter over the years, you would know that that behavior is absolutely endemic and normal in Monster Hunter. Entirely normal. And there's really not much point even commenting on it. Believe it or not, you will occasionally... I'm not going to dwell on this for much longer. I said that before, but I do mean it this time. I'm going to try to keep it to 2 sentences. Believe it or not, I have spoken to people after the fact that did depart without me, and sometimes they've just got no idea. They've got no fucking clue. They are apologetic. They say, oh, I didn't see you, or I had no idea you were there, even though, you know, you imagine those possibilities when they depart without you. You try to create an explanation for why they would behave in that way, but then you decide, no, they must have known that I was there. I think that this is one of those examples where very clearly they knew I was there and decided not to play with me. So, I don't think that argument applies. It's very unpleasant, but fine. I've moved on, and quite frankly, I'm happy with this group. It's not always possible that you can just get another group like that on the go, particularly here in this very small community. But I was gifted with an opportunity to continue the live stream largely uninterrupted. Bring the torch. I think AJ is concerned that I'm not letting you guys have full visibility of this fight. You can see that it is very dark in here, but I can assure you that it's more visible than it would be if I didn't have the bloom removed. If you remember in my introduction, I was talking about how the game is not as visually attractive if you're playing on original hardware. Much of the reason for this is the excessive and completely unreasonable level of bloom that they decided to have in this game. Now, what bloom is it makes the light parts of the game lighter and the dark parts of the game darker. That's not the exact definition of bloom, but that's really the effect that it has visually, and it just looks like shit. If you go to the desert in the original Wii version, or quite frankly in the emulated version without bloom removed, it's like you're walking on a sea of gold that's reflecting the sun's rays. It is like swimming in blinding light. That is how bright the desert sand is, and it looks terrible. It looks absolutely awful. And it's just incredible to think that I used to play this game and not even question that. I'm sure people who were a little bit more experienced with video games in those days, as compared to myself, and people who were a little bit more sensitive to those visual elements of the game would have noticed that, oh wow, this is a game with a huge amount of bloom. I never questioned it. I had no idea. But it's incredible to see how bad it looks. Just, yeah, the desert sand, there is no detail to it. You don't get to see the ripples of the sand dunes or anything like that. No, it is just blinding white. That is, quite frankly, not acceptable, but anyway. I guess what you could say is that Capcom had the opportunity to have a very attractive Monster Hunter game and completely blew it, for some reason. But, yeah, it's alright. I've removed the bloom, so now you get to see the game in all its splendor. It's worth mentioning that I have no graphical mods. For those of you who have been watching this recording and think the game looks really good, know that this game naturally looks like this. I did remove the bloom, but aside from that, this is just all stock. It's It's all stock. We did definitely put up with a lot of bullshit in older video games. And but it was a really stark contrast to how things became later on. You can see I keep trying to counter that, but weirdly that whole attack that you're seeing where Gigginox does this really slow lead up to a body slam, that actually requires guard up in order to block. It's not just that my counter is insufficiently strong, it's that you actually need guard up for that, and I discovered that while live. One of my viewers actually drew my attention to it. I hadn't really clocked the fact that I needed guard up for it until someone mentioned it. It was probably AJ, to be honest. And even if it wasn't AJ, I'm happy to adorn him with more accolades. It has to be said that if we didn't have these torches lit, there wouldn't be much to see. There wouldn't be much to see. Well, apparently, well, I don't really know the point that Daniel's making. The reality is that this game does actually naturally look very beautiful. It's just they added one little thing that completely ruined it. I don't know if Resident Evil 3 has a lot of bloom. I really don't know. I didn't play Resident Evil 3. But I do know that that's a very polarizing series. That is a series where some of the games will... they do attract a lot of criticism. But yeah. Oh, apparently AJ is ace. I am alarmed, AJ. I'm very alarmed by that realization. But it's a pleasant sort of surprise. I don't know if you mentioned that you were ace or not, but if you did, I apologize for being thoroughly unobservant and for not paying attention to the chat. Apparently, AJ is playing this game in the traditional way. There must be an option to do that. There must be an option. So, the way he's playing is actually the PS2 style, where you use the right analog stick to attack. I have a feeling, and I don't know this for certain, that it may actually be an option within the game controls, because if you think about it, like what if you've got people who have come from Monster Hunter 1 and then decided to buy this game, but they don't want to actually adapt to the obviously superior control scheme of this game? Maybe there's an option to fucking change it. Obviously you can probably facilitate that through the emulator and button mapping, but fucking hell, that would be incredible if you just naturally had the ability to change it in this game. I don't think so. I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing pointing mode, I'm seeing swim controls, orientation, quick aim control, nothing relating to attack controls. I don't know. I don't know how to change it. If it is an option within the game, I don't know how to change it, and quite frankly, I don't want to change it. Right. Well, new Resident Evil is something I can't comment on, Ethan. I really don't know. I seem to remember, the last thing that I remember about Resident Evil is, I think it was either Resident Evil 5 or Resident Evil 6 coming out, and people absolutely thrashing the game. Just the amount of, yeah, here's the word that you hate, Ethan, opprobrium. The amount of opprobrium, just the aggressive hatred towards that game was absolutely, it was thick. It was viscous. It was unbelievable. But yeah. Must have been 6. Must have been 6. It was like 2010, 2011, something like that. And wow. I seem to remember the internet just exploding with disgust at how bad that game was. Probably still not as bad as Final Fantasy 13, but you know. Rotund? What do you mean rotund? Alright, well that is Gigginox dead. We've got the little Giggies. As you can see, if you pull out a torch, the Giggy will retreat. Will withdraw very aggressively. Oh, hello. You poor thing. I must be in that very, very small minority of people who finds the small Giggies to actually be cute. I have no regrets in telling you that. It's just a fact. Just a factual observation. They are rather cute. Gigginox, however, not really. I don't find that monster to be very endearing, but... yeah, the small Giggies, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because they're a little bit pudgy. Well, obviously, the whole sucking business, I can do without that. I don't find that to be very attractive, but... that's what it is. They're sort of... they look like they're... like a bit like a stress ball, maybe? Like you can just squeeze it and... I don't even know what I'm saying at this point, but the point that I'm ultimately trying to make is that they are somewhat cute in a strange way. But I suspect that if I had one in front of me in real life, I would shriek. I would shriek if I saw that in real life. Better than Kezu, yeah. Speak for yourself on the sucking. Well, look, mate. If you... I don't even know how to respond to that in a way that's appropriate, Ethan. If that's how low the bar is for sucking, that you would accept a circle of teeth like those, I mean, anyway. Very low bar. Very low bar. And also, it's worth mentioning that you wouldn't be in a good way after the fact. Random person in the chat, oh, I think you're saying that the slimes are cute? The slimes from Dragon Quest? Either that or Aran in the chat is trying to say that he's cute, which, that's always good. One of the things about that Alatreon fight that I was a little bit annoyed about, well, I didn't even fight the monster, that's sort of the point that I'm trying to make. I would have liked to have demonstrated the bowgun in that fight, because I was just showing you the bowgun before, and how it's obviously different and a little bit complicated, and I didn't effectively explain how it worked. At least I would have been able to equip a bowgun and actually demonstrate it for that Alatreon hunt. I suppose I wasn't precluded from equipping the bowgun for the Gigginox fight, but I thought that it would be more appropriate to, conversationally at that point, demonstrate the special event weapon that I was talking about, which was the Banderlands. Wait, who's posting? AJ, it's up to you if you want to post. I'll see what I've got. How about we do Blood from a Stone? This is a good question. I need it completed. Let's do it. No, perhaps we won't do that. It's probably not a good idea. Alright, so what we'll do is we will do a quest where I'm likely to get Time-Worn Charms. So HR51 quests at this stage are going to be ideal for that. So let's do Double Trouble. I'm going to say... Loss Ian. I used to make fun of people, like this is going back to 2010, 2011. I used to make fun of people who would call Rathian Ian, because I'd say, you do realise that Rathian is actually a female, so it's rather unacceptable to shorten the name to something that is actually a male name. I was an insufferable little prick on this game. I really was. If you had encountered me, if you had encountered someone named Lerdzer, because I had missed the O, there's a long explanation as to why, but Lerdxer If you had encountered that person, I apologize. I was an absolutely shit-eating little prick in those days, but that's alright. Making fun of people calling it Ian instead of, I don't know, Rathian. Anyway. So, I might bring a bowgun this time. Oh, do you know what? Let's bring greatsword. Well, Ethan, I'm glad that you like vacuums. That's good. I'm definitely better informed. Should I use the Alatreon Revolution or the Anguish? Let's use Anguish because I have, these days, been using the Alatreon Greatsword a little bit more. And having a purple version of this weapon is actually unique to this game. So, something about this game that is different from the other 3rd gen games, and indeed all of the games that come after this one, is that your upgrades will be a little bit different for some weapons. You've got a choice to either create a version that has more raw damage, or a version that has more affinity. Which is really strange, because usually how it works is you've got a greatsword, let's say a dragon greatsword, and you've got a few different options for dragon greatswords. You will either choose the one that has a little bit of additional affinity or less attack, or the one with more attack and no affinity, and those would actually be different weapons. What they've done in this game, and I think it's because of the limited monsters available, they have given you the option within the same monster. Like, within the same piece of equipment, they've given you different paths to take for different, I guess, different abilities with the weapon itself. And there is also G for green. So green, I think, usually is... Wait, no, so purple, green, and then what's the other one? Yellow. So yellow is usually for slots, I think. So if you want additional slots with your weapon, you can get the yellow version. But for the most part, you have a choice between either purple or green. And that is actually denoted by the letter that comes after. So, Anguish, P. It's not P for power, it's P for purple, okay? It says attack bonus slots +1. If it was Y, and there is no option for Y for this weapon, I just want to make it very clear, Y would just be like 3 slots, for example, with no particular benefit. And then green would be additional affinity. Quite frankly, I've already got 5% affinity. I would like the additional attack. Can I check this chat log? What are you guys checking? What are you guys chatting about? I never look event the weapon. This is excellent. These are words of wisdom. I never look event the weapon. Do you know what, mate? Neither did I. Neither did I. I shouldn't make fun of his English. Do you know why? It's because I encounter a lot of people who just refuse to speak English or to even try. So it really is poor form to make fun of people who are trying their best. So I will silence myself. That's right, Ethan. I think it's a good way of approaching it. And it is why it is... Let me rephrase that in a slightly more articulate way. This is the reason why they've decided to have that option. It's because you've got such a small roster of monsters, and indeed the number of weapons that you have to choose from is so limited, that at least you're given the same options that you would have in previous games, but here, in this game. Just goes to show that they are aware of the fact that the game has limited content. And they put plans in place to ensure that people are still able to enjoy themselves when choosing the different things that they want. Whoa! So the quest that we're doing here is the HR 51 version of Double Trouble. Now there is an HR 40-something version of this quest, and the only difference really is the amount of health that the monsters have. I don't think that they deal more damage, but they may do. It is possible that they do. Alright, so I need to remember that I'm playing Monster Under Try. Okay, so there are two things... That was a funny thing for me to say without any context. There are two things about the Greatsword that are different in Monster Under Try. The first is that to go into a drawing charge, so in other words, to unsheath your weapon into a charge, you must be touching the R button. You must have either pressed it at that moment or be holding it in order to go into a draw charge. And the timing for charging your greatsword is also considerably different here in Monster Hunter Tri. And this is a good weapon to demonstrate it. I'll just demonstrate it here. Listen to the sound of the chain and watch how it works. Do you see that? And did you see the weapon expand and then contract? The contraction is loss of damage. So if you hold it for too long, you'll actually lose damage. So the correct way to do it is that. You have a very small window in which to get your level 3 maximum damage. What I would call level 4 is a loss of damage. Did you see that? It contracts. This is an excellent weapon to teach you the timing of greatsword charging in this game, because not all weapons are going to very, very clearly demonstrate the timing of greatsword charging in Monster Hunter Tri. But this here, and it really was coincidental, you probably heard that I was tossing up between either the Alatreon Revolution or this weapon for this quest, but it just so happened that I decided that Anguish would be more fun, and consequently I've been able to demonstrate this much more effectively. Whoever is hosting this, fucking hell, this is bad. Is it Lucy, because Lucy's the room host? Possibly. So yeah, to count out the timing, I did this in, I think, was it 3 Ultimate? I think it was in my 3 Ultimate recording when I was describing the difference between charging in Tri and in 3 Ultimate. In 3 Ultimate, it's 1, 2, 3. In this game, it's 1, 2, 3. Which is strange, and I don't know why they decided to do that, but it's an Alpha Team thing. It's Alpha Team's idea of just fucking with you. Making it so that you really have to be careful with getting your damage. You're not just sitting there having it effectively handed to you on a silver platter. So that is the Alpha Team approach. I'm now going to stop with my demonstrations and actually get involved in the quest, because this is a fight where all 3 of us have to be dealing lots of damage in order for us to be completing the quest in any sort of reasonable time. But yeah, the way that the greatsword is working here, in this game, is unique to this game. There is no other game that does greatsword in this way. And hopefully what this explanation shows is that Monster Hunter Tri is quite different. It's a different game. It may look very visually similar to 3 Ultimate, but there are so many fundamental differences that I think you will be entertained as an enthusiast of Monster Hunter by those differences. I think you will be able to enjoy it. So, or enjoy it in a way that doesn't feel like you're just playing the same game that you're familiar with from previous titles. I'm just settling for that charge, just in case. I'm getting very lucky with my critical strikes here. Unless I have critical draw, I might. I do have critical draw. I've got focus, critical draw, and earplugs. That's pretty good. I'll take that. No wonder I'm getting so many critical draws. An interesting thing, this is just a little fun fact, just while I'm giving you guys little random details about the series. Critical draw is different to Art of Unsheathing. So Art of Unsheathing is the Freedom Unite version of critical draw. And they do work fundamentally differently from one another. So Art of Unsheathing guarantees that you will have 100% chance to crit. Critical draw adds 100 affinity to your attack. The key difference between these two things is that if you have negative affinity and you've got critical draw, you're not going to have a 100% chance to get a critical hit. Whereas if you've got negative affinity in, say, Freedom Unite and you're using Art of Unsheathing, you will have 100% chance. Because it's not adding affinity. The skill itself is 100% chance. That's it. So, just a little fun fact. It's just a form of balancing in the background that most people wouldn't even notice, but it just goes to show that Capcom is paying attention to these little details while they are making a Monster Hunter game. At some point they would have reviewed the effect of Art of Unsheathing when they made Critical Draw, and decided that it was too strong before, and made it more affinity based than just a flat 100% chance to crit. Ethan is saying that he very much loved Wilds. That's fine. You loved what you saw, and you loved what you experienced. You were pretty enthused by the trailers, and obviously you enjoyed your time playing the game. It would have been nice if you and I got to play together, but sadly that wasn't going to happen. But that's alright. I'm not completely opposed to the idea of playing the game, but it's not going to be possible with my current setup, obviously. And I managed to kill her. That was good. And very conveniently, the Rathalos is here for us to fight as well. Check with you in a year on your enjoyment of the game. We'll find out. Also, it's worth mentioning that you, Tyler, and I played the Rise demo together. And you will recall that I was not sitting there completely disenchanted with the game at that time. I was just, you know, we were talking about things that we didn't like, but we weren't writing off the game or anything like that. But it did turn out to be a game that you and I decided was not just bad, but insultingly bad. So I think a demo, you're naturally going to give the game some latitude when you're playing a demo. You realize that this is not the complete picture. This is not the game. This is a taste of what you can experience within the game, but it is the full picture where you will be able to establish a complete opinion. And so I guess it's good to reserve one's judgment for when they've played the actual game. So any opinions relating to the demo are indeed opinions relating to the demo, and that is the beginning and the end of it. It does not flow into opinions about the full game, because it can't. Sometimes there are certain things that are in the full game that, quite frankly, cannot be reconciled. That's definitely how it was for me in Monster Hunter Rise. So I really need to... Hello, Wonderlord. I need a larger chat. My current chat is only able to show about 3 messages at a time. It's just not good enough. It's not like my chat moves extremely quickly, but... yeah. Lucy said sleep, and AJ said good night. No, he or she is actually shooting sleep shots. Oh, alright. This is going to be a very, very aggressive bombing of the monster. I'm going to take the hit, because why not? I managed to evade the explosion, which is pretty good. I can assure you that it wasn't intentional, but I can't complain. That would have been some serious damage. It's worth mentioning that you do have access to purple sharpness in this game, but this particular armor set does not have purple sharpness, so it's not perfect for Greatsword. You're obviously going to be much more effective with the Greatsword if you've got access to purple sharpness. But there are really only 2 armor sets that get purple sharpness in this game, and that is Vangus, which is Devil Joe, and Cedeus. Or Helios, which is Cedeus. we're not really talking about it, Wonderlord. We were technically talking about it, but it's not a main point of conversation. I would actually much prefer to discuss Monster Hunter Tri while playing Monster Hunter Tri. That is my preference. Always happy to have different topics, but that is not going to be the overarching theme of my Tri recording. The fucking beta of the game that I'm not going to play for a while and may or may not enjoy. It's worth mentioning that in Monster Hunter Tri, there were little things that you could do with the community that would keep things fun, despite the fact that you were playing a game with pretty limited content, and oftentimes you were playing for so long that you had experienced everything many, many times over. So there were certain activities that you would do to keep yourself entertained. One example of that would be glitch runs, so actual glitching within certain maps, just for fun. This location would be a great example. So, you would have a room that would say something like, what would it actually be called? I can't quite remember what we would call the rooms, but it would mention the word glitch somewhere. But basically, yeah, Ace is standing in the position where you would shoot a pellet gun at a person who is jumping down from Area 8 into Area 5, and they would get shot into that little alcove there in the wall. And what they would be able to do from there is go down into this little space, and then walk up inside the map. Now that is something that we used to do just to keep ourselves entertained and have a little bit of fun, and you know, you could go up into that direction, and I think there's like a little pocket of like ice, like there's an area where there's actually like a bit of snow map in there. It's really weird. And then over this way you can continue down to where there's actually a crossing up down there. You can go up on the green fields up down there. It's amazing. I mean, it's not as amazing as it sounds when I describe it, because obviously it's a little bit glitchy looking. There are parts where there is no actual object being drawn, you know, just flat walls and then nothingness. But indeed, it was fun. You could do it in pretty much every map. There was one for the volcano, there was one for the tundra. This location and the tundra were the main ones. I don't remember there being one for the sandy plains, I have to confess. If there was one, we didn't really do it. But yeah, it was a lot of enjoyment. I have distinct memories of being the gunner for a lot of these people and just helping them to experience it for the first time. I was ferrying people into the experience, you know. I would have a group of people and, you know, maybe we'd done a number of hunts. And I would say to them, hey, have you guys ever done the glitch in Moga Woods? And they'd be like, what? What do you mean? What glitch? And then I'd say, come with me. And I'd bring my pellet gun load out. And I would tell them to jump from Area 8 one at a time. And I would shoot them into that alcove, and it was good fun. And then I would instruct them on how to have an adventure. So it's not really something that you would normally have in an online game where there was lots to do, but precisely because there wasn't much to do, you would end up exploring these kind of experiences. You can see that despite the fact that we're pretty well leveled for this fight, we're well into 15 minutes now, and we still haven't killed this monster. Well, we haven't completed the quest. We haven't killed both monsters. I have to rephrase because it was almost implying that we were fighting this monster for the entire duration of the quest, which is not true. Shit. Oh, I'm way off target. Interestingly, he's heading in this direction. The direction that Lucy is going in is where I would have expected the monster to go, but that is not what happened. Unsurprisingly, I have no way to increase my stamina from its current level. That's not exactly a huge surprise to the audience. It does not come as a surprise to anyone. But it is a little bit frustrating. I do think the Alatreon Revolution may have been a little bit better, because it has more white sharpness, which would be more appropriate for a loadout that does not have sharpness +1. Oh god. Well, I would have been able to hit the monster, but that did not happen. I was flinched by AJ, and then I got annihilated by wind pressure. Always happy to be flinched if it leads to the monster getting hit, but I distinctly recall the monster not being hit. Unless it was positioned differently on his screen. Trank shot? Yep. Well, you certainly tried. We can't deny that you tried your best, but that was not effective. Can I just show the chat log for a second? This is very important. There's a guy named Nick. Lucy is expressing discontent. This guy named Nick, I don't know really what he's playing at, but he is either having really problematic connection issues, or he is remarkably indecisive. One of the two. Maybe he wants to wait but doesn't, so he's joining, he waits for like a minute or two, and then he reaches his limit and he's like, I can't do it, I absolutely can't do it. So he goes and checks to see if there's another room to join, realizes that there isn't another room to join, and then comes back and then rinse and repeat. I feel sorry for people like that, but I don't suspect that that's what's going on. I think he's just got really terrible connection. The scenario that I just posed to you as a possibility, however, does exist. Nick has now left again. Poor guy. What? Thought you were going to give me 2 opportunities to do that. That would have been very nice of you. Good God. I will be going to the bathroom after this. I've been, really needing to for almost the entirety of this confrontation. So if I seem like I've been on edge, that's why. I might actually just go now. I will see you in a moment. I'm back. Can I collect this within 10 seconds? I'm sure I can. What's absolutely essential? Well, actually, no, we're not going to talk about what's essential and what's not in relation to time-worn charms, because I'm going to get them no matter what. 1 second! No! I actually missed all of what there was to collect, but of course, even if you don't take your charms, they will be appraised in the evaluation box, no matter what. Protection plus 7 with 1 slot is not too bad, but I can't imagine a situation where I would want Divine Blessing. That's what it's called, isn't it? I think so. It used to be called Divine Protection. Okay. What's next on the agenda? I'll probably do one more hunt and that'll finish us up. Just so that the recording's not too long, you know. I did about a 30 or 40 minute introduction. I should check to see how long that ended up being. It was 34 minutes long, so yeah, we'll do one more hunt. I need you to reread that sentence, Ethan, and tell me if you understand what that says. I should stream some Souls tonight. Yeah, I could do that. I was sort of thinking of doing Morrowind, but I could do Souls as well. Souls or Morrowind? Let's have a vote. What should I do? You vote Morrowind? Very good. Happy to do that. I'm planning to start a new Morrowind series. I was having some recording issues last time I tried to record it, but I've now resolved those issues. I've realized that some applications are not... They don't really... This is actually one of the games that has the same problem, so I use something called borderless gaming. And it allows any games that don't natively have borderless windowed mode to have it. So you just do your normal windowed mode, which normally looks really gross, and then you just add it to borderless gaming. It's like a piece of software where you can add certain applications to it, and then it gives you absolutely flawless windowed gaming. Now, sometimes OBS can't properly record the games that are being affected by borderless windowed, or borderless gaming. And Monster Hunter Tri and Morrowind are two games that unfortunately are affected by that. The result is that I will be trying to record the game on OBS and the game is just frozen. So it's funny that I happen to be recording like the only other game which has had the problem. It's only Tri and Morrowind, nothing else. So Bloodborne is not an option, not because I dislike the game, but because I literally have no way to play it. I don't have a PS4. I bought a PS4 for World, had it for about 4 months, and then sold it along with World, for reasons that I don't think I need to expand upon. What is with people joining this city and then leaving? They know precisely what's going on before they join the room. They know who is in the room. They should be able to figure out what sort of quests we're doing. I don't know what's happening with Nick. I don't know what a disc Wazzily is, but... Oh, disc was loading. Or a disc Wazzily. There's absolutely nothing wrong with creating a new version of the English language. Maybe it'll catch on. Alright. The thrill of the hunt. Looks like we're finishing up with Uragan. And because I haven't done Bowgun, I'm going to do Bowgun. Hope you're ready. So, let me try to find my... I think it's this one, isn't it? Yes. Or is it? It's like a status gun that I think I... So this is my status set. Let me just see if I've got any... Okay, I've got a single slot in this. So this is my sleep bombing set, actually, now that I look at it. Let me see if I've got a general status gunning loadout. I don't appear to. So that means I'm using this. And possibly changing the barrel to Gigginox. It's called the Blood Guilty Moor or something like that. There we go. It's amazing that I remember that. Like, that is a memory from more than 10 years ago. Like, I remember that name not from having recently played the game, but it's such a standout name that I remember it without difficulty. Alright, what have we got? I just want to see if this is appropriate for what I'm looking to do. Yep, it rapid fires 3 poison shots and, well, level 1. And that's pretty much all I need to do. When I was talking about the frame, stock, and barrel having an effect on the shots that you can shoot, maybe you can get an idea from that from this graph, or I guess these columns and rows. You can see that the frame, stock, and barrel will actually dictate what can be shot, and then the final column shows what can be shot overall. This barrel, the Gigginox barrel or rather Giggy barrel that I just equipped, shoots 3 normal shots level 1, and rapid fires them. Occasionally you can actually have a barrel that rapid fires something without it being able to shoot something on its own. So it'll just literally add rapid fire capability, and nothing else. So that does happen occasionally, but in the case of this particular barrel, it lets you shoot poison as well as rapid fire it. Wow, Wonderlord says that Uragan should be a deleted monster. Not exactly a roaring endorsement for the Jay Leno monster. Just goes to show how different the world is now. Back when this game came out, Jay Leno was still, you know, on TV. So people used to make references to the chin. Doesn't happen anymore. Not like he was on TV in Australia. I'm just talking about American pop culture, okay? You can't really get away from it when you're on the internet. Let's not bring any traps, I don't think that's necessary. Let me just make sure that I've got the ammunition that I need. I do thank the team for their forbearance and their patience. Oh, let's not bring whetstones, that's not necessary. I've got a separate gunner pouch, which is indeed a tri-specific implementation. It doesn't tell me what I can and can't shoot, which is extremely annoying. That's obviously something, that's a quality of life feature that was later on released in the game. So I can bring Pierce level 2, and yeah, Poison should do. Pierce level 2 and Poison. And I'll bring combination materials for Poison, which should be Huskberry and Toadstool, I think. Come on. Let's see. Yes, poison level 1. I think that's going to be enough, to be honest with you. Can I shoot water shots? If I can, I'll bring those. Water. I can shoot 3. I'm bringing water shots. AJ says in the chat, gunner moment. Yeah, it's a gunner moment for sure. Alright. Okay, Danielle's joining the chat. Very good. Very good. Probably best that she speaks for herself rather than through you. Then I can get the full experience. Alright, so the reason why I'm using poison here, with the decision to use a bowgun, is because poison is obviously very effective against an Uragan. And this is one of the most enjoyable setups for poison in the series, by the way. This particular barrel, that has an actual Giggy as the barrel, is so effective on its own, as something for poison, that it has to be demonstrated. What I've got here is something that reloads very quickly and is reasonably light. So one thing that I neglected to mention when it comes to bowguns is that bowgun weight is not a given. in this game. Weight is something that accumulates as you equip the different pieces of your bowgun. So every single piece of this bowgun has a different weight to it. I don't know if I can really show this. It's much easier to show. Here we go. So weight. So you can see the frame has 30 weight, the barrel has 15, and the stock has 5. This totals to 50, which keeps it at medium bowgun weight. So medium bowguns exist in this game because those 3 categories of light, medium, and large are cumulative. So the cumulative weight of these 3 constituent parts ultimately give me a medium bowgun. Now, believe it or not, the folding of your bowgun, so something that you sling over your shoulder versus something that you have to unfold, does not relate to bowgun weight. This is very important. The only thing that will cause your bowgun to have to be folded up is the frame. If your bowgun frame is particularly large, it will have to do that. It's probably not possible to have a light bowgun with a frame that has to be folded, because I think the frame of the bowgun is going to be so heavy on its own that you'll end up crossing the threshold into medium bowguns. But I guess you could say it's technically possible to get a light bowgun that folds. But I suppose what's most important to mention is that in this game you can have a heavy bowgun that you actually sling over your shoulder. What will make it a heavy bowgun is how quickly you move with it and how slowly you sheath it. So this is a medium bowgun, what you're seeing here. I don't know if you can tell that it's a little bit slower, but when I sheath this, it's just a little bit heavier than a light bowgun. And your physical movements are probably a little bit slower as well. But medium bowgun is the sweet spot, because what you can do with it is that you can get pretty good mobility, but these heavier bowgun parts that deal more damage can be equipped without the mobility inconvenience of later games. So there you have it. Ooh, not normal shots. Thank you very much. Ended up gifting a sub to Ethan. I think, isn't Ethan already subscribed? Well, he's doubly subscribed now. But thank you for the gift sub. I'm just settling for water shots here. I don't really know if it's better to do pierce or water. I might actually do pierce, to be honest with you, because I can only load 3 water shots, whereas with my pierce level 2, I can get about 6 or something like that. What is that? Yeah, 6 shots. Can you hear how beautiful pierce shots sound in this game? Absolutely If you want the perfect sound for a pierce shot, it is in this game. It is satisfying and also very clearly reflects your critical distance. Did you hear how the sound changed there? Oh, Jesus. Aside from the fact that this monster is doing instant transmission, you can probably hear when the shot is too far away, because it doesn't have that same texture to the impact. I don't know if texture is a sonic quality, but it is now. It is now. And yeah, it's just really, really good. It is the perfect sound for Pierce to have. And they actually returned to it in 5th gen, I think. I think it sounds more like this in 5th gen. So I remember noticing that, either in World or Rise. It's been long enough now where I don't remember. But in one of the 5th gen games, I remember commenting on that. I remember saying, wow, they've gone back to the tri-sound. And there's a reason. It's because it sounds better. It's so good. So interactive. That's the word. Interactive. It lets you know whether it's good or not. And that's good sound design. You've obviously got a little bit of screen shake sometimes. Maybe not in this game, but in other games you get a little bit of screen shaking. I think it's beginning in 4th gen. When you get the critical hit, or when you're within critical distance and hitting a part of the monster that's weak. But here, you just listen for it. And it just works. And as I suggest, very satisfying. As you can see, I've got a little bit of deviation with this gun. We've got high deviation to the right. To be honest with you, deviation is fine, provided it's not left and right. Left and right deviation is extremely annoying because it's inconsistent. At least if it's leaning heavily to the left or heavily to the right. You just position yourself in a way that gets it on target. You memorize the trajectory. Left and right is like a zigzagging pattern, which is just quite frankly stupid and really annoying. Unfortunately, looks like we're having disconnections. I don't know if this is wider server related issues or if it's just my connectivity with these guys. I have to say though, I really don't want to finish on that note. Ethan got gift subbed by Danielle and then gave it back, which ultimately means that I still get the sub, but it's been reallocated to the person who gave the gift. That's quite funny. Anyway, yeah, that was a proper disconnect. So, do we still have the room? I don't remember where it was. I think it was here, wasn't it? No. I assume that the room has now collapsed. Never mind. Looks like Lucy's still in there, so let's head in. Perhaps AJ and I disconnected from Lucy. It may be the case that the host is actually the person who makes the room in all cases. And the reason why I say that is because in the original Try servers, and I assume that it's still this way, if the room host leaves during the quest, like abandons the quest for example, everyone disconnects. Every single person, because the person who makes the room is the room host. That used to be the most annoying situation. So let me paint the picture for you. You've departed on a quest with 4 people. The person who made the room is automatically the room host. You're going through the quest. Everything's, fine and dandy. And then the room host dies twice and rage quits. Everyone's quest gets cancelled as a result. Because the room host is the person who is hosting the quest, and they don't migrate the host. So, it's pretty sad. But that's how it used to be, believe it or not. So I think we both disconnected from Lucy, and I have reason to suspect that Lucy's connection is a bit shit. Because, yeah. When Lucy moves around the area, it looks a little bit laggy. So I would very much like to do that again. No vouchers, unfortunately. I have to take what I'm given. AJ is using the shark attack. Sorry, I see that you're mooching a meal. I didn't see that you were mooching a meal. That's my fault. You can mooch all day, mate. Fun memory, the first time that I got a keyboard to plug into my Wii to play Try was actually doing the event quest that Ace got that lance from. It's basically, I think you have to kill 20 sharks, and there's a Royal Ludroth as well. I just remember plugging in my keyboard and just chatting the whole time. I was so chatty. It was incredible to go from having to use this stupid thing to being able to free type on a keyboard. Unbelievable. It was unbelievable. I loved it. I just spent the whole quest chatting to everyone. And yeah, I have a very distinct memory of that. Sounds good, DOR. I need to get up on my guitar practice as well. I've waited far too long. Waited far too long. There is a beached shark in the tavern. Not sure what's going on with Lucy. I will just post the Uragan, quite frankly, at this point. Tonight, Ethan, is Cooper's Best Extra Stout. It is an Australian stout. I can't really say how good extra stouts are. I don't know much about extra stouts. I'm familiar with stouts, just as a type of beer. But I'll tell you what, if you want a filthy fucking beer, and I don't mean filthy as in guilty pleasure, I mean just bad beer. Guinness Extra Stout. Absolutely revolting. Like, I can tolerate a Guinness. It's okay. There's not much flavour, quite watery. Nice and smooth at least, thanks to the nitro. But Guinness Extra Stout is filthy. Like, I would rather drink effluent, to be honest with you. But that, yeah, fortunately, Extra Stout, not necessarily a bad type of beer, because this is very good. Cooper's Best Extra Stout. Ethan loves Guinness. Well, don't have Guinness Extra Stout, okay? Just have the regular one. Guinness Draft. But yeah, the softness is achieved by the nitro, which is neither here nor there. I'm kind of neutral to it. Is Jin staying with us? Is he able to... No, he is not able to join. At all. He is HR 26. Unfortunate. We disconnected. Did I? No, I didn't lose any ammunition, so this is all fine. Lucy says, "Let's go, Kazama." I don't know what Kazama means. It's not a Japanese word I'm familiar with. It sounds more like a name than a word. Sorry, I've got neck issues. Let's do it. You needn't be so reserved, Lucy. This person cannot join us. AJ is telling Lucy that he can't join. It shouldn't really be necessary to tell her that, but maybe she hasn't noticed. Well, in the meantime, we can enjoy this giant shark. Oh, good God. Just check. It's not hard to check. Anyway. I suppose it's better to be... It's better that Lucy was waiting rather than just deciding to depart without Jin, without even checking to see if he could join. So if I were to... I don't know. Weigh up the positives and negatives. Yeah, it's much better that Lucy waited, actually. Alright. Our final hunt, but it's a little more belated than I intended it to be. Had to have a disconnect for the last hunt, and now it's serious business. We're actually doing the hunt now. But yeah, after this recording I'm going to do a bit of Morrowind. I'll make a new character and just make my way through. It'll be a new livestream series on the Doomlink channel. It's obviously not going to be on the Link Inverse YouTube channel. But for those of you watching live now, it will be on the same Twitch channel. So you don't need to go elsewhere, long story short. If you want to see me if you want to see me play Elder Scrolls 3, this is where it's going to be. I might take the opportunity to carve this in a harbour that I accidentally hit with my poison shot. Bit of monster fluid. I will not turn my nose up at that. As for explaining all of the unique features and aspects to Monster Hunter Tri that differ from other games, I haven't really gone hard on that, have I? This is the funny thing about this series. This is not a comprehensive series that gives you a full rundown of what's going on. Basically, it's everything that I can think of covering in the introduction, and then it's just me hunting live, and then maybe I'll think to mention something as hunts are playing out. It's a very casual live stream series. I mean, the way the videos look initially, perhaps when a person first clicks on them on YouTube, it might look like a presentation, and I suppose because I do naturally introduce my live streams, it does look like it's going to be a sort of comprehensive presentation, but not really. I mean, if I wanted to do that, I could, but I wouldn't do it in this way. It would be quite different. This is just hunting for fun, and then I guess introducing the game to those who are not familiar with it. That's really what it's intended to be. Let's top up our poison. That was a bit overzealous of me to be attacking in that moment. It's worth mentioning that the Uragan rolling is a little bit harder to deal with in this game. So, beginning with Portable Third and then continuing into Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate and then the 4th gen games, Uragan he tends to roll on the spot a little bit more. Watch him move here. Well, that's not a good demonstration, but next time that he does some rolling, I'll try to show you. He does not do a roll on the spot. He actually will roll in a much wider circle, which makes it harder to avoid. I would say that it's less predictable, and consequently more likely to hit you. And you'll see that I'm not being affected by the tremor. The range of the tremor was hugely increased in Portable Third, carrying on into 3 Ultimate. So the tremor range is considerably less here in this version. I get to shoot 1 Pierce level 1, that's very good. Do you see the movements there? A little bit harder to predict, hey. I wonder if I'll be able to get my poison with these shots. If not, I should be able to combine for them. There we go, got my poison off. Now, speed combos in this game are something that you actually have to set. So you create like a menu. It's a menu that you create yourself. It is not automatically brought up as a list based on what you have in your inventory. Speed combos in, I think, 3 Ultimate and going on from there reflect what's in your inventory. You can see here, I don't even have this in my inventory. This is just something that I've manually put there for my cluster shot runs when hunting Alatreon. So, there you go. That's a difference. I suppose the best way to describe it is that it's the first example of a new system, and they improved it in future games. But here in this game, it's quite different. Just off the top of my head, in terms of changes, Dragon Blight is different in this game. Blights in general are different. They were first introduced in this game, Blights. That's the idea that if you get hit by an element, you will actually suffer a negative consequence as a result of being hit by the element in question. So Dragon Blight in this game, which can only be removed using Dragonfell berries, I'll come on to that later, instead of removing your elemental damage, it gives you negative affinity. I think it adds -20.
That's my memory. I don't think it's negative 30. I think it's negative 20 is added onto your weapon. So if you started with 0 affinity, you would be in negative affinity. So that's what Dragon Blight does in this game. As far as having to use Dragonfell berries to remove it, that is the case for all blights in this game. Null berries were first introduced in Monster Hunter Portable 3rd. That is the idea that you have one consumable to remove all blights, including Dragon Blight. In this game, you've got a separate consumable for every single blight in order to remove it. So I believe it's Fire Douse Berry, Water Block Seed, Ice Thor Pellet, Thundercaller Seed, and Dragonfell Berry. Out of all of those consumables, I may have even gotten some of those words wrong, but I don't even think I would be capable of getting those wrong. Some of those are so specific that they must be correct, but out of all of those consumables, the only one that remained was Dragonfell Berry, to use for combining for Dragon Shots in the future games. Which leads me onto Dragon Shots. Dragon Shots are different in this game from every other Monster Hunter game. So it is absolutely the case that you have pretty limited Dragon Shots in your inventory in all of the other games. Like if I look at Freedom Unite, pretty limited there as well. In this game, you get 30. You get 30 shots, and you've got a lot of bowguns that can shoot it pretty effectively. So this isn't just 30 shots and then you can combine for another 10. So, for example, if we look at Portable 3rd, well, let's say 3 Ultimate. I don't know Portable 3rd intimately because it's very hard to get Dragonfell berries in Portable 3rd, so I don't have much of an intimate experience of using Dragon Shots in that game. But if we talk about 3 Ultimate, the maximum number of Dragon Shots you can have in your inventory in that game is 3. And the maximum number of Dragonfell berries you can bring is 10. Now, I think that in this game, when you combine with Dragonfell berries, which still remain at a limit of 10, I think you can possibly get more than 1 shot per combination. I could be wrong. But what I can say, unequivocally, is that in this game, you can hold 30 Dragon Shots as opposed to 3. And I don't think they're that much weaker than they are in later games. They're not that much weaker. So, yeah, that is the last hunt that I'm doing in this recording, and I do feel like I haven't really touched on all of the differences that you can experience in Tri. I'll throw another one in for you. The Super Pound with the hammer in this game is the strongest attack. It is not the golf swing. It's not like the triple pound into a golf swing. No, it is the Super Pound for the hammer in this game. Bit weird, but it's true. So many specific things about this game that are unique, that don't appear in any other game, just little balancing changes. The next time that I record this game, maybe I'll go over a few more of those things, a few more of those changes. But when I record this stuff, it's all off the cuff. I don't have a fucking list. This is not a produced, comprehensive presentation, so I'm not going to get everything. So, there you have it. You're very welcome, P-Berry, and yeah, everyone who was watching, I hope you enjoyed. I will see you next time I'm recording Monster Hunter. The next iteration in this Endgame series is going to be Freedom 2, so that'll be enjoyable. AJ may be joining me for that as well. We'll see how things transpire. I will see you next time I'm recording Monster Hunter either way, and I thank you for watching. Bye-bye for now.